And welcome back to the Beckett Show. I'm so excited to be here for our fifth episode of what will be 365 different episodes along the way. And today we're talking to John Beckett, uh, Druid, Pagan, but most importantly, he does a great blog on Pathos, Ancient Oaks, and he talks a lot about what the things is. He's an influencer in our community, and I think he's one of the best philosophers we have. Um, and I was very excited to be able to talk to him. But before we get there, one of the big questions of the day today is uh, wow, January 5th. Can you believe it already? 5 days have passed. And we are deep into it. And the question of the day that's now come up. And I've been following it via Facebook. And if you follow me on Facebook, you can follow me at Facebook at both Ed the Pagan and Ed A. Hubbard. You can find me easily on Facebook and other places as well. I'm Ed the Pagan everywhere. Is the idea of AI being used in the community? There's a lot of stuff that's being created by AI. People are using AI pictures, they're passing it along, they're writing articles, and kind of the rejection of it. Are you a good leader if you're using AI? And the line seems to be, and I want people to talk about it. I will talk about this tomorrow on my Facebook page, even put up a post a little bit later today. But are we bad for using AI in this process? Where's the limits? Because they're saying it's bad for the environment and everything else. And if we don't use AI, how do we keep up with all of this? And of course, one of the biggest arguments that people have had on all of this is that, besides the environmental, if we don't use it, we'll be caught behind. But right now, I am going to do this. Nope, wrong button. I am going to do this. And let me see if it will work. And yes, there we go. Hi, everybody. As you know, I've been asking friends, people I've admired, and all sorts of things across the pagan world to come and participate in our conversation. And if you want to participate in our conversation, just go to Pagan World. It's almost everywhere. And you can join us too. But today I have Pathos is a great writer, but he does much more than that. I've had a long admiration of John Bennett. Uh, it's not Reverend John Bennett, or you don't have any titles with that.
Beckett. Beckett.
Beckett. Why do I
Yes.
keep my number one disease? Um, yes, and you see his. And so people tell you where they're going to fight. Let me go ahead and start out so they can go right away because the
Yes.
attention span. Where do they go to find your writings?
The easiest place is on my Pathos blog. If you'll Google John Beckett Pathos, it will take you there. And I've been blogging since 2008.
Hmm.
And I don't blog as often as I used to, but I'm still blogging most weeks. Um, my undertheancientoaks.com is my teaching site. Where I run online courses and I've got a weekly newsletter. And then my books, The Path of Paganism, Paganism in Depth, and then the Book of Cernunnos, which I co-edited along with Jason Mankey.
That's why now. So now people know where to go and everything else. So let me ask you. Let me ask you where we always start. How did you become involved with paganism? Where did that start for you?
Oh boy, we could talk for a couple of hours on that. I'll try to keep it fairly
Well, I always
brief.
tell people it's the comic book origin story.
Yeah. So I grew up in a small fundamentalist Baptist church. And at first, I believed what I was taught because that's what you do when you're 3 or 4 or 5 years old. But as I got a little older, I started realizing the things that I was being told I had to believe didn't quite make sense. Science told me that the universe is 13 billion years old and the Earth is 4 billion years old, and they were trying to tell me it was all 6,000 years old, and that didn't make sense. Um, Spiritually, they were telling me that just a very few people are going to go to heaven and everybody else is going to burn in hell, and I couldn't reconcile that with the idea of a God who supposedly was all knowing and all wise and all loving. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't have the breadth of knowledge to understand how it was wrong and what other options there were. And I tried to be a progressive Christian as a young adult, and I met some good people who were doing some good things, um, but it didn't speak to me. And then in my early 30s, I met a Wiccan for the first time. And here was what I had been looking for. Here was a religion um, that said there's a goddess and a god. Here's a religion that said nature's not fallen, nature is sacred. Here's a religion that said magic is real. Just what I had been wanting. Unfortunately, I had not dealt with the religious baggage I had from all those years growing up in the fundamentalist Christian church. And I went nowhere. Um, every time I would start to get kind of deep into my pagan studies, something I started having religious doubts, religious fears. And Thanksgiving night 2001, I had an epiphany. It was like all the gods grabbed me by the shoulders and said, get serious or move on to something else. And I didn't quite know what get serious meant, but I knew that if I didn't do this, I was going to end up with some deep regrets later in my life. And so I got serious and I started reading and I started practicing. I started
Can I stop you
meditating.
right there?
Yes.
So, one of the things we're hearing a lot of in the younger, I've heard it in the elders, but I'm hearing it a lot more in the younger youth today. And maybe because well, let me go ahead and just ask the question. They're hearing these voices and having these sort of experiences. And a lot of them are in fundamental orthodox situations and they're coming out. And instead of coming out to elders, they're coming out on TikTok. They're coming out on other spaces, not knowing how to process that feelings, looking for answers. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you know, people have had religious experiences of gods and spirits and and other such things. Um, for as long as we've been human, most people have one or two of these experiences that if you gain their trust, if they know you're not either going to laugh at them or call them evil, they'll talk about them. But our the the loudest voices in our community scream there is only one God and he can only be approached in this prescribed way. And the second loudest voices in our society scream there are no gods and all this is just made up. And so when you have an experience of a god, a spirit, a nature spirit, um, people don't know what to do with it, and they don't have they don't have safe places that they can talk about these things. So one of the things I try to do in my one-on-one work and in my work on social media is, be a safe person that somebody can tell these stories to and encourage them to tell them. And I encourage people to remember your experiences are always real. Now, your interpretation of those experiences may be more accurate or less accurate, more helpful or less helpful.
So
What you experience really happened. Make sure you've got to you think through what it means.
absolutely, I have a thing that's personal gnosis. Okay, so but you had this experience, got serious, and started reading.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
So I so I came across Joseph Campbell and the Power of Myth. And since then, I've got some issues with Joseph Campbell. I don't like his idea of monomyth, but at the time, he was exactly what I needed when he was talking about the commonalities of religious experiences in humans. I went back and I read some Christian books. I read some Christian history that they didn't teach me in Baptist Sunday school. Um, I learned things like the whole idea of rapture and all that stuff is not something Christians have always believed. It was invented in America in the 1800s. Um, I read some Buddhist books and got a whole different take on the whole concept of religion and spirituality. I read some Jewish authors and got a different take on the Old Testament and how the people whose holy book it was to begin with read it and interpret it. Um, and I began to meditate and pray and do some basic spiritual practices like following the sun and the moon, um, going outside and just spending time in nature, spending out time with trees. And after about a year of that, I needed a group. I had gone as far as I could go on my own. And by that time, I had figured out that I probably was a was a good fit for druidry, and I kind of considered myself a druid. There were no druid groves in the Dallas Fort Worth area at the time. I heard about this thing called CUPS, the Covenant of Unitarian Universalist Pagans, and I went to Denton Cups for Imbolc 2003 just to check it out, and I never left. I went to another one, and then I joined, and then I was asked to lead a ritual, and then I was asked to be an officer, and all of a sudden I'm a local pagan leader. And then I needed some formal training, so I joined OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, and I worked through their study program. And I still had some more questions, and I wanted to work through those in a public setting, and I started a blog. And then I was asked to move the blog to Pathos, and the blog turned into a book and turned into another book, and all of a sudden, um, I'm you know teaching at pagan conferences, and people are asking me to come on their podcast. So um, it's it's been a um, it's been a fun trip, fun journey, and it's got a good bit more to go, and I'm anxious to see where it
Mhm.
leads me.
So let me ask you a question. So a lot of individuals, and I want you to guys remind you that we're doing these shows. If there's somebody you want me to interview or bring back, let me know. We got a lot of time to fill, and we want to talk about the pagan culture in general. And John Beckett, did I get that right this time? There you go.
Yes.
Is one of the leading thought leaders in our community. And I really do believe that. So everybody always thinks they have a perfect time, but we all have doubts. Was there any moment in your path that you could share with us where you had doubts and got your faith reaffirmed?
This was late 2003, so it was um about 10 months after I had joined Denton Cups. And we're a Cups group, a Unitarian Universalist group. We don't have a formal tradition. We don't have oath-bound secrets, but several of us felt the need for an initiation. And so we did what pagans frequently do when they need something and they don't have it available. We made one up. Um, we did online research. We bought some books and we figured out what needed to go in it, and we wrote our we wrote an initiation. It was actually pretty good. And as it got close, I started feeling this urge to turn back. And I started, every time I turn on the TV, here's some TV preacher talking about how his folks are going to heaven and everybody else is going to hell. And I spent some time with a good friend who, let's just say, is quite financially well off. And I started wondering, why am I spending all this time on this religious stuff instead of making money? And I kept feeling this urge, this call to turn back. There is a there is a line in a traditional Wiccan initiation that says, um, um, "O you who stand before the gates of the mighty ones, how do you enter the circle? For I tell you, it is better to fall upon the sacred blade and perish now than to enter the circle with fear in your heart." Well, the trick isn't to enter with no fear. The trick is to enter in spite of your fears. And what I wanted, what was on the other side of that initiation, more than I was afraid of what might happen. And we did the initiation. And there was a point, it's oath bound, and I will continue to honor that oath. But there's a point in that ritual where the priestess who was officiating for me drew a sacred symbol on my forehead. And when she did it, it felt right. This is what I wanted. This is what I was called to do. This is what I was called to be. And I moved forward. Now, it's not that I never had doubts after that, because I have. They've gotten less and less the longer I practice. I have very few anymore because I've been doing this for so long. Early on, yeah, those doubts come. But I wanted what was on the other side of that initiation more than I was afraid of what it might do. And I crossed the bridge. I stepped into the circle, and it's been a great thing.
Mind open, never returns to its old settings.
Yes.
Well, thank you. So today you are one of the most popular bloggers. You go out there on Pathos, and where can we find you again? Because you always do it better than I do.
Again, if you're looking for the blog, Google John Beckett Pathos. The blog is titled Under the Ancient Oaks. That's also the name of my teaching site that's maintained separately. But yeah, Google John Beckett Pathos. It'll take you right to it.
And so, I'm in this next year advocating we need to start seeing our resources that we have and just do it more. So you have this wonderful, deep set of blogs that talk about pagan culture. You're not talking about teachings or traditions in the sense of, I'm John Beckett, this is my dread, or this is what I want you to be. You really talk deeply about the conditions of being a pagan, is the best way to phrase it.
Yes, I mean, I'm a member. I'm a full member of the Druid Grade and Obod.
Oh yeah, no
Um,
question.
I'm an ordinary member of ADF,
Hmm.
member of Denton Cups, member of the Covenant of Unitarian Universalists Pagans. I'm a member of a few pagan groups, but what I do is what I do, um, and that's the approach a lot of pagans take. Um, this is what um, they're following the things that interest them, the things that call to them. And one of the things I can do is say, this is what I've done. This is what I've learned. These are the challenges I faced. These are the problems I encountered. This is how I addressed it. Mm, Does this sound like it might work for you? You know, follow along. At some point, you can read my books, you can read my blog, and you can start doing the things I do. And at some point, you're going to say, John, I don't think that's quite right. I'm going to go over here. Great. Um, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to create a tradition. I'm not trying to start a tradition. I'm not trying to start a new Druid order. I'm trying to be the best pagan I can be and help people figure out how they can be the best pagans they can be.
I think you do that admirably and well. And I think you've done that for a fairly period of time, more than a decade, right? How many years have you been doing the blog?
I started blogging in 2008.
Okay.
So there's 17 years worth of blog posts on Patheos.
There you go. So there is this deep depth to what you're writing. So let me go ahead and take it. I want to thank you so that people know what you're doing. There's so much more I want to get into. But let me go ahead and ask you, 2026 is coming. You've seen everything. You got your scanning machines and the internet out there, probably your friends and everything else. What do you see is on the horizon for us? I mean, what do you think you're going to be writing about?
So I'm still trying to close out 2025.
Hmm.
I don't usually start looking into 20 into next year until the secular holidays,
Okay.
that wonderful liminal time that many of us, though not all of us, have, that starts around Christmas Eve or so and goes through New Year's Day. If you work hospitality, you work medical, you're first responder, you have to work. But
Hmm.
if you're in academia, a lot of people in the corporate world, we've got some extended time off, and that's when I usually start looking at next year.
And
Personally, personally, I'm nearing the end of my paying career. I make my living as an engineer, and I'm nearing the end of that career, and I've got some things I've got to do to get ready for that next step when I can leave that behind and become a full-time druid. I'll still be working full-time next year, but I've got some things I've got to do to get ready, and that includes handing off the last of the things I'm doing with my local group. I am fortunate to have a co-leader, Cynthia Talbot, who has been with Denton Cup since I think about 2010. She's taken over the leadership of that group over the last 7 years now. Um, and um, we make a good team, and before too much longer, I'm gonna leave it in her hands. So there's some more things I've got to do for um, to hand that off. I always do a divination for the upcoming year, typically on New Year's Eve or sometimes on the 30th. And I'll do that then, and I'll blog about it, and it'll be out there on January 1st for everybody to read. Um, you know, what's gonna what just off the top of my head, what's coming in 2026 in the pagan world? I don't know. Um, there's there is I'm seeing more desire for depth in magic, in the on the religious side, on the devotional side of it. Um, I'm seeing a desire for community. I think that's the biggest thing I've seen this year. Um, Denton Cups we had a wonderful local group going, and then the pandemic happened and we almost shut down. We came back, but our attendance has been a fraction of what it was before the pandemic. And then at Imbolc this year, all of a sudden it popped back up. And we've had good attendance at all of our circles this year. We had 60 at Samhain this year, which is the biggest, the highest attendance we've had since again since before the pandemic. People are people are nervous, people are anxious. They're looking for a place they can go and be with other people like them. And that's one of the things we can do with our local group. It's one of the things we can do with our online presence is just be a community, give people a chance, a place where they can be with their own, be with their, be with their own people. Um, so I think we're going to see more of that. People looking for community. The history of the pagan community, trying to build community is not a good one. We tend to be very let's just be honest. The huge growth of the pagan community from the 1990s on has been with solitary practitioners, and
Absolutely.
and that heritage has a big impact on what we can do when we try to come together. And there have been bad actors in the pagan community. All of us have a bad story about bad actors in previous religions. We don't trust groups. We don't trust leaders. Um, and I'm not sure how we're going to work through that. Um, I'm There's been some conversation on Facebook this week about trying to build some resources and build some community, and I see some of the same conversations we were having 10 years ago, 15 years ago, or people are looking for something it that isn't the same as the local Methodist church, the local Presbyterian church, but has that sort of institutional feel to it. And we haven't been able to figure that out yet. And I got to think about that some more and write on that some more. So yeah, look for something next week probably with some thoughts on that. But no, to go back to your original question, what do I see coming in 2026? That's I haven't given it a lot of thought. That's pretty much what I've got.
That's quite insightful. So I'll be looking forward to seeing more of what you're doing. Um, so my very last question. So people love reading you. They buy where can they get your books? Because it's one thing to read your blogs, but we love the census books. I think we should be building libraries, all of that. Where should we get your books?
Anywhere you can find them. The easiest place to get them is Amazon. Amazon is not kind to authors, but I would rather you buy it from my books from Amazon than wait till you can find the perfect place to get it and then never buy it because you never run into that. Um, the Llewellyn books, The Path of Paganism, Paganism in Depth, you can get that at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, um, some local bookstore, some local pagan and spiritual bookstores will carry it. Um,
And
you can order them directly from Llewellyn. Our devotional anthology, the Book of Cernunnos, is only available through Amazon. Um, Devotional anthologies tend to have rather low volume, and the big
oh,
publishers
sure.
don't want it because we have print on demand technology. We can uh, we can um, we can publish it anyway, but we publish that through ADF, who uses ADF print on demand, and that's the only place you can find the Book of Cernunnos.
Wow. So this is one of those things that are there. I love print on demand. It's really made us peak book now, in
Yes.
the community. I think that's a great thing. People can now know it. So we're going to have John. I'm hoping to have John back later on this year. As you know, this is the beginning of our new movement towards having the big conversation. And John starts them every day on his blog. Thank you for coming.
Hey, thank you for having me.
There we go. Wow. Don't know why it does that. I'm still working on it, but there we go. We're back for a few more minutes. Tomorrow I'm going to have Shane Nelson with me, and I want to thank John Beckett again. Please see his spaces and see his work. I think he's done a really amazing job. Tomorrow I'm going to have Shane Nelson on this week. He's going to talk about trauma, and he's got real numbers. Everybody talks about, oh, we're a full community full of trauma, but he's got real numbers from study. I'm really excited about that. And then we're going to have Mary Hawk, Queen of Swords herself. We're going to do an interview with her on Wednesday. Thursday, I'm going to do a very special live, so you can ask me questions, but it's going to be what's the plan? What am I doing? Why am I doing all this? And then finally, but not last, will be David Moore. And David Moore will be on Friday. And of course, 365 shows. Keep sponsoring it. Take a look at it. Facebook.com/EdThePagan. And we'll keep expanding this. I'm also on Spotify.